Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to Final Trade. We're going to take another 6-month look at the long-term Magic Collector Box compound annual growth rate. And as I always explain, compound annual growth rate tells you what is the overall average annualized percentage growth rate in this product's price, or if it's negative, the decline in the price. And so it allows us to compute one number that explains over the entire lifetime of the product how well it is done or how badly it is done. And so the assumptions I make with these analyses, as I repeat them every 6 months, are that you had to buy the product on release day. You could not wait. After that, you had to immediately tie up your money as soon as possible, which makes everything a lot more conservative. And you paid wholesale price. Now, for some of these products more recently, it's been very difficult to get wholesale price if you're not a true retail outlet and buy it from distribution. So there was a long time period in 2020, 21, 22, even into 23, when nearly everything in Magic could be bought below wholesale price at least at some time or another, if not consistently every day. And a few of these products, you'll see the ones that are marked in red, are still below wholesale price today. So headed into 2024, we've seen less and less of that. We've seen a lot of these collector box products be above wholesale price on release day when they come to the retail market. And so fewer opportunities for that. So far, I don't really plan to change this analysis to try to somehow adjust for that because there's no good way to do it that everyone would agree on. We'll simply keep comparing this to wholesale. And then the price that I use for today is just the market price on TCG Player. And then I compute the compound annual growth rate up to the day I'm doing this analysis, which is August 6th of 2024. So what we see is this, again, this early period that I've talked about in the past where WotC was kind of trying to figure out the print runs. They were figuring out how to put value into these boxes, what to do with them. And I think what we saw a lot early on is there wasn't a lot of special stuff in these boxes, arguably until Zendikar Rising came along with the two box toppers, which would be the Expedition lands. And so up until then, it was basically just that they were attempting to figure out the print runs, and that's really where a lot of the value came from, and the fact that these are now the oldest. And you can see over here on the release date, the Throne of Eldraine box dates to 2019. Doesn't that seem like 100 years ago? And so the first one that has a negative performance even up to today, meaning that its total average return even to today is negative, is Kaldheim. Poor old Kaldheim. Really nothing great in that box, and it was definitely suffering by the time it came out from the print to oblivion kind of mentality that WotC held in 2020, 21, and 22, and that they did not pull back on until the products that began being released in 23. Now we get out there to Strixhaven. It's done really well. You can see over here on the exact percentage, 13% compound annual growth rate. And of course, it had a lot of very, very attractive cards in it. So the next one, the green Modern Horizons 2, this had done badly for a long time, and it's come up in price more recently. I always felt like these boxes were undervalued, and I bought a bunch of them back when they were in 22 and 23. The green bars on this chart, by the way, are the non-standard expansions. And then we get into this row of standard expansions that are during the print to oblivion era, and we see the only one that did great was Kamigawa, because predictably Kamigawa is the only one that had real chase cards in it. The rest of these just did not. Forgotten Realms, Midnight Hunt, Crimson Vow, and Streets, just nothing great in those. It just had special versions, whether it was the Parchment Showcase style cards, or as the Gilded Foils, or whatever specific set to set, but they did not have chase cards in them, and so they just have not done that well. But Kamigawa with the Neon Hitasugu parallel cards, yes, that is driving the value. And when we go over here and we find it, 16% compound annual growth rate on that since release. The next green bar, Baldur's Gate. Now, Baldur's Gate has moved from about 140 a box to nearly 200 a box in the last 3 or 4 months. It has been a very rapid rise recently. So far, it is still the only place to get the Ancient Dragons. They haven't been reprinted yet. And I think that until they do, Baldur's Gate is going to continue to move up very, very nicely. And there were a lot of people like me opening those boxes and destroying them in order to sell singles. And so I personally opened about 150 collector boxes from Baldur's Gate to sell singles back when they were much cheaper and there was a lot of value to arbitrage out of them. Double Masters 2022, you know, we it's hard to remember that this has done really well because even today at 237 market price, the market price is below what it was on release day. Now, it's still a lot higher today than the wholesale price, but on release day, these were selling between about 260 and 280 back in 2022 in the summertime. But compared to the wholesale price, they're up about 14% on the compound annual growth rate basis. Dominaria United and Unfinity, of course. Unfinity really didn't have much going for it, and Dominaria United kind of had a big backlash because of the hysteria surrounding the Lost Legends, pushing it way too high, way too early, bringing way too many sales to the left on the timeline, and I think it's just going to be a long time before it recovers. And never forget, the Lost Legends cards only added about $4 or $5 of expected value to every single one of these collector boxes. So there's really no chance in the future that the Lost Legends will drive the value of these boxes. I mean, even if on average the market value of every Legends card increased tenfold, then the expected value contribution from Lost Legends to the Dominaria United collector boxes would only be about $45. So it's really not going to push it much long term. Brothers War, of course, had the first serialized cards in a randomized product. It had the Transformers Shattered Glass cards, so it had a lot going for it, and it's done well. Dominaria Remastered still down pretty hard. Phyrexia doing well because we're into the 2023 era now, where print runs were controlled better. And March of the Machine, serialized cards, and more disciplined print runs. Now, you'll notice I've cut off the plot at March of the Machines. That's because compound annual growth rate gives really crazy numbers on short time scales. And to show you that, we can look at everything that's down here in the table, but is not plotted. We can see that Lord of the Rings shows a 79% compound annual growth rate. And yes, that is true, but that product has only been around for 14 months and has seen amazing appreciation. We see the wholesale price was about $290, and today the market price is about $555, but no one really expects 80% compound annual growth rate to reflect what this will do long term. So what we probably need to do is keep that in mind for Lord of the Rings for maybe 2 more years or so and really see how does that settle out long term. Now, it could be that on the long timeline, Lord of the Rings grows an average of 40% compound every year for a long, long time because it is a very, very, very good product with really great IP crossover, great flavor, everything else. Just looking out here at some of these other ones to comment on. Commander Masters, 18%. That seems pretty good. But again, it's only been out a short period of time. And so that short period of time to base the price difference over causes your compound annual growth rate calculation to give outside results. And again, we see that with things like Wilds of Eldraine and Doctor Who, Lord of the Rings Special Edition. Yeah, shockingly, $589 market price today. I was shocked by that. I bought a bunch of these several months ago for under $400, and to see they're already nearly $600 is really, really crazy. But again, that 174% CAGR that calculates out of that is just not a reliable number. So, not much to say about it beyond that, except that these will only really become part of the discussion as time goes on, as the waves in the market become kind of forgotten ripples and everything averages out over the long term. So there are several other collector boxes I do not even have in the table yet because the effects of the short periods that they've been in existence would be even more profound. But I think what we're seeing is compared to when I did this 6 months ago. We've seen several more of these older sets push up towards profitability. We've seen Kamigawa come back into profitability and do very well compared to other ones. We've seen Baldur's Gate get back closer to break even compared to wholesale prices. And so I think in the long term, a lot of these are going to do very well. This kind of cluster of standard expansion collector boxes here from the Print to Oblivion era, those are going to have a real uphill battle, especially Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow, just because of how much they were hated in their own time and how bad the boxes were engineered and how overprinted they were. So it may be a long time before those get back into positive territory, and they may never really get to where the compound annual growth rate is something respectable. So it's good to see that some of these are doing very well. It's good to see the ones that were doing badly 6 months ago are in general doing better. And we hope that in enough time, all of these will be positive. The really great trend since the beginning of 2023 is that products have almost universally been positive. And you see that right here in this area I'm highlighting on the table. The only ones that are below their original wholesale prices from 2023 onwards are Dominaria Remastered and Murders at Karlov Manor. So even the ones that are not on the table now that have been released, like Outlaws and Modern Horizons 3 and Bloomborough, those are all doing positive too. So WotC has gotten things under control in terms of adding value to these boxes and being disciplined on the print runs so that not everything crashes in price as soon as it comes out. So they're doing very good. Hopefully going forward, there will be fewer and fewer of these that release to a negative price, and over time, the ones that are still negative from the past will recover. So I do this update about every 6 months, give or take, just to kind of look at where have these boxes gone, how are they doing, what are the long-term trends, and how does it compare to other things you can throw back in your closet for the long term. So let me know if you have any questions about this, any ideas for the analysis, other analyses you'd like to be done, anything else. Thanks to everyone who makes this content possible, especially my very generous supporters on Patreon. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and join me on Final Trade.